fill the void. An unfamiliar path with a pulse of its own.
3, 2, 1.
Final Encounter Cast. Interesting conflicts, not conflicts of interest.
Typical corporate bullshit.
With your hosts, Nate, Robbie, Chris, Nika, and Callie. FinalEncounterCast.com.
Ready? Get set? Go!
What's up? Welcome to Final Encounter Cast. Woo!
What?
A gaming talk show
Is it now?
that you have found on the internet.
Maybe.
Congratulations.
So unique.
Heaven have
should
mercy upon you.
Yeah, well, yeah, you should feel special.
We are special snowflake.
Jesus, did you even try?
Apparently
Finding
not.
a good one.
According to Google, or according to YouTube, rather. Anyway, thanks for joining us. FinalEncounterCast.com is the website. If this is your first time finding the show, hit that follow button and join us on Sundays. We're happy to have you along for the ride. We got tons to talk about, including the latest gaming headlines and news stories. We're also going to be talking about Square-Enix today. We kind of had touched on this on our other show. By the way, we've got another talk show. If you're into Final Fantasy 14 specifically is what this show focuses on. If you're into playing MMOs in general, maybe you might want to give this show a shot. If you like the personalities here, you're going to like them there, because guess what? They're the same people. So
sometimes we're even all there.
I know, right? Like today. What? Anyway, limitbreakradio.com is where you can check out that show if you're just primarily a fan of Final Encountercast. But something that we had touched on is the idea that, Square Enix went through a big shift going between Squaresoft and becoming Square Enix.
Shifting from good to bad.
Well,
No, Princess Bubblegum has a point, but we'll get into that a little bit later.
We will.
Princess Bubblegum?
We will
Good golly, Miss Molly.
But
An Adventure Time reference.
The question came out whether or not Square Enix still has the ability to produce good games. And so we're going to drill a little bit deeper into that topic today, talking about a Rolling Stone article that had come out a couple of weeks back talking about Final Fantasy 15, the lineage of this old series, and what exactly has gotten lost in the translation along the way. We're going to be talking about that and taking your calls. By the way, your calls happen at Final Encountercast on Skype, 810-207-1764. If you're a podcast listener and you're listening over at FinalEncounterCast.com, we want to encourage you to join us on Sundays, because we are a live and interactive show. We take your calls, and that is a normal course of every show that we do. It is the intrinsic nature of the program to take your calls and to have your input on this program. So we want to be able to give you that opportunity, but you got to tune in live. That's at twitch.tv/FinalEncounterCast. Again, Final Encountercast on Skype, 810-207-1764. So we are supported by Alamo City Comic-Con. Alamo City Comic-Con is happening October 28th through the 30th at Henry B. Gonzalez Convention Center in sunny San Antonio, Texas. Some of the huge announcements in terms of guests that are going to be out there.
It's everybody. Everyone's going to be there.
David Tennant, Karen Gillan, Billy Piper, all of Doctor Who fame. Millie Bobby Brown from Stranger Things. John Barenthal from The Walking Dead. We've got Robin Lord Taylor, Sting, Peter Weller. Ralph Macchio is going to be out there. John Barrowman, Summer Glau. Wow. Jeremy Bullock, David Prowse, Billy D. Williams, some huge Star Wars names. Tim Rose is also going to be out there. Brian Herring recently worked on the most recent Star Wars films. Amy Jo Johnson and Jason David Frank from the Power Rangers.
No, that's Tom.
Are going to be out there. Tom Kenny, Bill Fagerbaki,
Nate Bender.
Whoa, language.
Roger Bumpass, Mr. Lawrence, all names that you would know if you're fans of SpongeBob SquarePants. They're going to be out there. Steven
wasn't one of those Squidward?
Absolutely,
God.
Roger Bumpass is the voice
That's a
of
sweet name.
His name is Bumpass.
Yes, it is.
Is the voice of Squidward. Stephen Ogg, Sean Solo Fontino, and Ned Luke, all voices of the three main characters, Trevor Franklin and Michael, respectively, in GTA 5, are going to be out there. Dean Cain, Margot Kidder, Christy Swanson, Mina Suvari, Chris Sabat, Sean Schimmel, Joey Fatone, AJ McLean. I mean, dude, the list goes on and on and on. Marky Ramone. I'm going to get to meet a punk rock legend.
We need to get like an Animaniacs, like Yakko's World of all the people who are going to be here.
It's insane. Booker T, Jamie Kennedy, David Arquette.
It's kind of a big deal.
It is a big deal.
Someone, if you meet Booker T, you have to ask him what his shucky ducky quack quack moment of the convention is.
Oh no, I just want to lose
my mind.
I just want to know what exactly ran through his mind the moment he called Hulk Hogan a nigga on TV. That's what I want to know.
I want to know what was on the girl's mind next to him. Is that Sonny or
no?
Who was that?
I forget who was with him at the time. Yeah, but that was so fun. Mean Gene Okerlund just goes, "Oh my god." He just looked so disappointed in Booker T in that moment. Jason Mewes, Jeremy London, Brian O'Halloran, Nolan North. I mean, God, dude, Dennis Rodman, Dennis Haskins, who played Mr. Belding from Saved by the Bell. God, so many people are going to be out there. We want to see you out there because, of course, I'm going to be out there. And if you do end up showing up to Alamo City Comic-Con, make sure that you say hi.
And sweep the leg.
So Alamo City Comic-Con, again, that's October 28th through the 30th at the Henry B. Gonzalez Convention Center. All right, let's check out what's going on in the news.
I'm here to do the news tonight.
And that's the way the news goes.
Ladies and gentlemen, we interrupt this program to bring you important news.
Here's a story that's out of this world.
Our Pokemon Go update for the week starts off on a more depressing note as our streamer of the game was mugged live on Twitch.
Stealing makes everything better.
The streamer, RickyBot, was walking around New York City streaming the game and was punched in the face by an as-of-yet unidentified assailant.
Ooh.
The man proceeded to rob the streamer of all his valuables, including the smartphone, which still had the camera running. RickyBot reported the mugging to police and then went to the hospital for an injured jaw. We're told he's making a fine recovery.
Okay, so
how long did it take this guy to take the stream down is my question. Like, how long...
Probably had to wait till he got home, right?
I was going to say, if the camera was still rolling, did it not get a shot of him? How is he? Oh, man.
Everyone knows.
Oh, yeah. He has good footage of the guy to give to police.
How is it?
Oh, he does have good footage. How is he as yet unidentified?
Well, I think...
It's New York and there's a lot of people.
Well, also bombs have been going off recently, and, I mean, I feel like the police probably have higher priority.
There's got to be an intern somewhere you can give this to. Do police have interns?
Where's their Skuro? Why isn't he working on this?
Thank
right,
you.
Yeah, there you go.
He's eating a donut somewhere.
Skuro is working on it. That's why he's unidentified.
Yeah, maybe though you don't mug a guy who has a GoPro on his head. Maybe. I'm just...
How dumb.
Get Charizard out of here. How dumb is he? He's not identified yet.
And wait, he didn't... I mean, did he take his GoPro too? He took the GoPro.
He took everything.
He took everything of value.
Wow.
Oh
you can watch him running away.
You can watch that on the replay.
I hope the mugger uploads it to his YouTube. Check out this sweet footage I got today.
Oh, God.
On a brighter note, a couple of details about the game's future were let loose by Pokemon Company CEO Tsunekazu Ishihara. He confirmed that PvP battling is absolutely part of the vision for Pokemon Go and its future, and is currently being worked on. But also, it was confirmed that trading will be the next major update to the game and is due out in a few months. I am going to put out, this was not from the most reputable website I've ever seen in my life, grain of salt kind of thing, but it is out there and being reported on.
I do sort of feel like all of the major features that we've heard about, sort of in the lead up to the release of Pokemon Go, as well as just after the release, we've already seen them. We've got the buddy system. We've seen some updates in that area. I feel like the next thing to come is the making good on the promise of trading. Yeah,
and they're saying it's a few months out now.
And also, they to be fair to Niantic, they did have to go through a process of kicking out a lot of the cheaters to be able to make sure that trading environment is somewhat equitable. But we've also seen major yelling. I don't know why. We've also seen in some of the data picking apart, like some of the data mining, that there has been some note of trading that's already there have been some hints at it, some features in some of the data parsing that's come out. So it is definitely nice to see that they're going to make good on that promise finally.
Yep. Also, Android patch 0.39 and iOS patch 1.9 hit and implemented the ability to see where Pokemon were caught on their information screen. Also, Pokemon Go Plus accessory will now allow players to catch Pokemon they encounter via incense. And a glitch wherein a Pokemon's Pokedex number was influencing its IV stats has been fixed.
Yeah, so what this was that the higher the Pokedex number, the higher your attack IV stat would be. So it meant that most all Eevees had near perfect.
Oh, that's why I have like 5 Eevees with perfect attack.
Yes.
I was like, why is it that I have all these Eevees at like 200, 100 CP that have perfect attack?
Because they've been genetically modified to be the perfect killing machine.
That's why my Bulbasaur sucks?
Yeah.
Yes.
No.
Check your starters.
Hold on.
Shit. Oh my god.
I was gonna say, hold on. That's just Bulbasaur being Bulbasaur.
Okay,
but Charmander sucks.
There you go.
All starters had very, very low to almost zero attack IVs.
Unless it was hatched.
You're correct. Unless it was hatched. It didn't matter if it came out of a nest. It didn't matter if you caught it wildly. All of them were shit. So they fixed that problem, but at the same time, or because of being able to fix that, they've also fixed the problem where all nest Pokemon that you catch are shit. That is no longer the case.
That's kind of dumb.
No, that's good.
I just don't get how, like, from a programming level, how did that glitch happen?
That is a good question. That is a really good question. But it was fixed as of like 3 days ago. So you have an equal chance, no matter if it's a nest Pokemon or wild Pokemon, to catch something with with decent IVs.
Has the nest migration happened yet?
No.
I thought it was supposed to be soon.
It was supposed to be, and then it never happened.
Because the nest by me is an onyx nest, and that was the worst nest I've ever found, and I need to go back when it's changed.
That is a pretty terrible nest because
I got like 5, and I was like, no, I'm done.
Yeah,
I still don't own an onyx.
Why would you capture 5 onyx?
Because it was a park. It's like a botanical garden, so I wanted to walk around and actually, get the $5 worth we paid to get in. And we didn't know what nest it was until we got in there.
But when
gotta get that Stardust, bro.
When Gen 2 comes out, she'll have the candy for Steelix. Steelix didn't suck.
Assuming that's how you evolve them.
That is true. I would imagine that would be.
Well, you know what they say when you imagine. You make a mage out of I and E.
You get a magazine based off gin.
Okay.
Okay.
Right. Anyway,
that wasn't terrible.
What? You don't want to go to war with me.
But that's not all of the changes, though. There were also some pretty big changes to the battling system that came with 0.39. You can now actually queue abilities. So that whole like dead zone for abilities where you would try to fire like a long hold ability and nothing would happen, that happens like a lot less. And it seems like fast hitting moves hit faster now.
Oh, good. So Vaporeon's stronger?
Yeah. Well, in some senses, yeah. But I mean, like fixing the IV, I think will help
Even
with
it
that.
out.
Yeah, because every Vaporeon was good previous to this.
Okay, so what low level or low Pokédex Pokemon was worth anything besides like Venusaur?
Not many of them. That's why a lot of them in the meta were completely dismissed. I mean, if you look at a meta chart of your attackers and defenders, none of the early Pokemon are on that. They're all very high in the Pokedex.
Explains why the Venusaur that I caught was like Blanche is like, don't even bother, just release it.
Put that thing out of its misery.
Yeah, I mean,
turn
now,
it into a salad.
But now though, since starters have an equal chance of having decent IVs, that will, I think, end up changing some of the meta.
Do you know if that fix works retroactively or anything caught from here on in?
No.
It's definitely not going to be retroactive.
Definitely not retroactive.
Wait, do you have to actually download this update yourself? Because, like, I didn't download anything, and the Bulbasaur I caught today was still total shit tier.
Well, you can still get total shit
I know,
tier.
but I've never found a good Bulbasaur ever. I have like 600 CP Bulbasaurs that are extreme shit.
Yeah, but look, I caught 200 Kabuto at the Kabuto nest that was near where I work, right? I'm sorry, I shouldn't say none. I think out of all 200 of them, less than 10 of them were even in the strong category, not even getting to, the top tier. There was second tier. Only less than 10.
Woof.
Single digits. Look, that's rough. I think it's a fair change. Although the concept of nests being a place where you go simply to farm candy
and not necessarily high EV Pokemon.
Yeah.
Yes.
Kind of makes sense.
I think it did.
That was a fair trade-off.
I agree as well, but I think that this is probably better for the long term. People go to nests. They travel a long distance to go to nests, and it is kind of disappointing to walk away with nearly a full page of Pokemon and have to transfer all of them. That is a little bit discouraging.
Just cater the casuals in.
Yeah, casual.
They're hemorrhaging players. They got to do something.
Yeah, I suppose.
Hi-Res Studios COO Todd Harris took to Reddit this week defending the studio's new game Paladins from accusations that it's a clone of Overwatch. The similarities are striking, from the dwarf character who builds turrets to the tank character who uses a chain to hook enemies. He lays out a timeline for the development of the game and lists the inspirational sources of the game, citing primarily Smite, Team Fortress 2, and Global Agenda. Paladins just recently entered open beta, whereas Overwatch has, of course, become immensely popular, so that's an accusation they're probably going to be stuck with for the foreseeable future.
We didn't copy it from Overwatch. We copied from these other games, okay?
That Overwatch copied.
I'm bringing up the screenshot on the screen right now to give you guys an idea. I mean, immediately from just at a glance, I'm like, oh, that's Overwatch.
Yeah.
I mean, that doesn't bode well for your case. I'm just saying.
But to be fair, like when you have things like, all right, a tank uses a shield. Well, of fucking course it does.
Like, does he also charge?
Like in certain instances, I think it's hard to get away from it. Now,
is he also melee?
Building a turret? All right, that's pretty on the nose.
That's a little
there.
specific.
But when you have China, who straight up did an Overwatch clone, like, come on, it could be worse, guys.
Okay, yeah, they're not like ripping assets off at least.
Now, admittedly, we're still only a few months released from Overwatch, so I doubt like Paladins can't be that much lifted from Overwatch. They were in development at a lot of the same time. But come on, there's some influences that you borrow from Overwatch. Just admit it.
For sure.
Yeah, You're just doing this to spite me.
That was Reinhardt's shield.
I mean, that's... No, Reinhardt's shield doesn't have, like, the big things, like, on the corner of it, because that just doesn't make any fucking sense. Does it?
Yes!
I thought his shield is just straight up, like, the projected thing.
No, it's literally the same thing. Like, he holds up his shield, like, the little things come out and goes out.
And it's also fair to mention
Reinhardt.
Smite and Global Agenda are their games. So, yeah, I don't think they're too worried about having borrowed from those games.
Oh, okay. Well.
Speaking of Overwatch, Loverwatch, a fan-made dating sim set in the Overwatch universe, allows players to hook up with their favorite characters in the game.
Oh my God.
Currently, the game, which is set before everything goes to shit in the Overwatch lore, boasts about 60,000 words per route in the game. The development team, which stands at 8 people, claims the 3 combined routes would come to about 180,000 words, making it longer than FF13.
Nothing's longer than FF13.
That's you know what? As horrendously dorky and geeky and kind of pitiful as that is, that's a lot of development work for 8 people.
That's so much time.
Oh my God. That's so much work for 8 people.
And
only 3 writers.
The big question is, though, are there sex scenes?
I do not know.
There better be.
If not, what's the point of playing it? Where's the payoff? Where's the reward?
It's like reading a fan fiction, but having a little choice and having it be like playable.
That's not the big question. That's a question. I will grant you that. I don't think that's the big question. The big question is, does Blizzard get involved legally, and at what point?
Well, of course they do.
I would think they would.
Yeah, hold on though.
If they're not
I think that because of Overwatch, this might actually provide a very unique situation. Because one of the things that Blizzard has boasted about Overwatch and the fact that they don't have a lot of official lore out there is they like the idea that players kind of get to fill in some of the headcanon themselves. And this provides a really interesting headcanon that the reason the shit goes down is because you couldn't keep it in your damn pants.
Hello, kiddies.
No, I mean they have been incredibly protective of the Overwatch IP. Mm-hmm. They've gone so far as to shut down
the porn sites.
Porn, yeah.
Yeah, and they give cease and desist to people who are like creating merchandise.
They also pointed out that was specifically because they were using models right out of the game. They were using their assets. Not if you're using fan art.
No, if they're completely creating the models or the art themselves, it's not the same.
Yeah.
So
how could this maybe even be protected under like a parody type license?
That's what I was wondering. If that, it might be protected. But then I wonder how that affects someone's ability to sell it, market it, and profit off of it.
You might not be able to make money.
Yeah,
which
definitely
free
not.
thing. It might have to be for a free thing, but how much development they're spending on it, like
that's what it is. Like 8 people, a game this size, like that is a massive labor of love if you're going to do it.
If I remember from the article, at least one of the developers has like some actual AAA title credits to her name, including Ubisoft.
Wow.
Yeah.
Can I do it naked?
Okay. I mean, I've been contracted by NBC. Just saying. I mean, you can say things on your resume, and you know what I mean. Like,
really quickly,
doesn't necessarily mean anything.
I need to address Crayola Chris over here. Okay.
What?
The way that you're spelling your name in your text now.
That's not how I'm spelling it.
Yes, no, it is. It
No,
totally
it's
is.
not.
This was by request. It went from Christoph to
Don't use my real name!
To Crayola Chris.
Yeah,
that's your new nickname, Crayola Chris. All right, you know what? Your drops have been kind of spotty today, so I'd like to propose a contest. All right?
Awkward.
We're going to play a game. I'm going to randomly pick one of your drops. All right? It is now up to you to successfully work that drop into this show. Okay?
Can I do it naked?
It's too bad that wasn't the drop.
That was a good one, though.
How do you know?
No.
Because I didn't pick a number yet.
Yeah,
But what if it was that one?
All right.
But if it is, he's got to select the number first, and then it's after that point that he's got to use the drop.
So you have what, like 377 drops?
How amazingly accurate!
it's almost as if we didn't work this bit out before the show.
Robbie, whatever you do, don't pick 103.
You need to use drop 272.
272.
272.
Oh, God.
Now, he can't tell us what this drop is. He can't mention anything about it. It's just up to him to work it into this show. Now, if you happen to use the drop and we think that it's good, then you can let us know
Yeah,
that was 272.
if we laugh at it, yeah,
and you win.
Yeah. Yeah, after it goes and you see what the reception is in the room,
Yep.
you tell us.
And then at the end of the show, we'll ask you. If you didn't win, we'll ask you what was the drop. Did you even get to try it?
Yeah, right. All right. So, I like that game.
I like this game too.
This is a good game.
Shit, yeah!
Steaks.
What do you guys think about that drop?
Hold on. We need steaks.
We just had pizza. What the fuck do we need steaks for?
If you fail at this game,
fuck you! I don't agree to this. I don't care what you're gonna say.
You don't even know what it is.
You haven't even heard him. He's got to say something.
You don't even know what it is.
Yeah, come on.
If you fail at this game, the blowjob that Nate has to give is to you.
What? If you fail at
So
this,
I want to fail. What?
if you fail this game,
Daddy?
next week, Papa gets your mic and camera.
Fuck that.
You're still on drop duty, but he gets your mic and camera because people want to see more of Pops on the show.
That's true.
They like him.
Yeah. We've heard.
Not more than me.
You would be surprised and mistaken.
Still butthurt.
Right. Well, luckily, this isn't any kind of democracy.
Yeah.
And Nate really owns all the equipment. He can just change it around while you're not here. So
Kinda, yeah.
just you better get good.
Yeah.
Because you don't have a choice.
I can't. Ooh, that's right. I can just mix up his drops when he's not here.
You could do that
I
too.
could.
Don't do that. That'd be hard to find them then. Just pick a different number.
Mislabel them.
Oh, that would be so mean to mislabel them.
And we'd be making fun of him like it's his fault. Like, what the fuck? That has nothing to do with anything.
I should. I'm not even gonna say it.
This is bullshit.
I like this game. This is a good game. I think we're gonna get some mileage out of this one.
Oh, come on. All
I feel like you should have to try to work it in as many times as can be funny, and then we'll figure it out or something.
Back to the news with Pinkie Pie.
Yep. A Russian streamer made his way onto our News So Weird I Can't Believe I'm Saying It Out Loud update. The streamer, who is fairly popular in Russia, was battling rumors that he was homosexual, which of course is a dangerous thing to be in Russia. To prove that he was not, he had the simple solution of hiring a hooker and having sex with her live on the stream.
Oh, God.
Gay!
Wow.
And did he ever?
What a fag.
Did you watch?
No, I did
Had
not
I
watch.
known about it,
Queer.
You can find videos of it out there. But
well,
yeah,
I'm gonna now.
he sure did.
Look, this is clearly the gayest thing that he could have done in response. I'm just saying that because I think it would upset him if he ever heard this.
All right, but he's
You know
from
what?
Russia. You
In
could get him
hindsight,
killed.
he probably should have made sure the prostitute was female.
And hindsight.
Still butthurt.
Guys, we are going to get him arrested. He is going to be in a gulag because of us.
Well,
I do feel like this is a bit extreme. Like, if it's just rumors and there's really no proof, all he has to do is shrug it off, right?
No,
Because what can
not in Russia.
Think of where it is, Nico.
No, I know it's in Russia, but what proof do they have?
It doesn't matter. Over there, rumors
Russia.
is enough.
Scuttlebutt. That's my proof.
Yeah, like it was really damaging, like his like streaming reputation too. Like,
okay.
People in real life were like coming up to him being like, so what's this I hear about?
so I
you
hear like
sucking
that dick, bro. He's like,
Yeah, like over there, this is the type of
You
stuff
like
that
to
could get
take
you
the
jumped
flesh
and
pipe?
get your ass kicked just based on rumor.
yeah, it's not good.
It's a completely different
But
cultural
now,
connotation.
this was live on stream. Did something happen to him?
Which-
because of
yeah,
this?
what-
I was gonna
which
say-
streaming site was this?
yeah.
They did not say what site it
Okay.
was. I'm obviously not Twitch. Twitch would that'd be
Yeah,
it
so
for that.
I'm wondering what the the restrictions are for streaming sites in Russia. I guess
I don't know. It was probably
it was
probably
teamcams.com.
Yeah, like it was probably some like Camho site that
he did the act on.
Right. Yeah,
So
and
it
it's
was
just
illegal.
and it was notable because it's him.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I would guess.
Time to put your mouth where our balls are.
But again, clearly the gayest response that you could have ever had to that situation.
We're all butt healed.
But what could he have done then?
I don't know. Honestly, I mean,
Clearly, the
to be
only
fair-
solution was to have sex with a hooker.
live
live
on the internet. Yeah, I honestly, I mean, truthfully, I don't really know.
Well, we heard that you're gay.
Stop! You can't laugh at any of his drops. That way he loses.
I know, they're funny.
I've already won.
What do you mean you've already won?
I already hit the one we had to hit. 272?
It was probably shit, yeah.
No, we're all still butthurt.
Oh.
I knew it.
Oh, well.
Meh.
Oh, well.
Try again. Give me a harder one.
I'll give you a harder one.
Yeah.
166.
166.
Yeah, you know what? If you pull from the earlier numbers, I know this much about the system. If you pull from the earlier numbers, you're pulling from drops that I pulled.
Oh, that are new?
Actually,
no, that are older.
I changed it just now before the show. No, I'm serious. I actually went through and actually deleted a lot of the shitty ones, and I put in alphabetical order.
All right, well, how about this then? When I pick a number, if it's, we'll say one of like your go-to drops, have us repick.
Okay,
so 166.
Okay, but I still get a point for 272.
Fair enough.
Fine.
You can have a point that doesn't count because we don't work on a point system.
Fine. No.
The points do matter.
He can have a point.
Okay.
We'll just leave it at that.
The points matter.
I'm doing good in the game, so I'm doing good in life!
Was that 166? Yes, there was! Hell yeah! Number 2!
Wow.
Oh, he's the master.
Give me another one, bitch!
He is on this. 69!
Boy, this is really backfiring on you, isn't it?
We are getting destroyed at this.
Try again.
Kelly, you need to keep an eye on him. Make sure he's not like switching around the numbers.
I know, he's not.
Oh, my God. Unbelievable.
201.
201? All right. 69 was do your job.
Oh, my God. Paramount Pictures has at long last given us a brief glimpse into their upcoming adaptation of Ghost in the Shell. They've released 5 10 to 15 second snippets which give an idea of the aesthetic of the movie and a look at the major.
Yeah, we don't want to look at too many of these, but
Right.
we did talk about this on a previous episode, so we did actually want to take a look at least one of them. And number 3, actually,
Yeah.
we do see...
You'll be able to see all of them at the link on our site.
Right.
But
we actually do see Scarlett Johansson as the major, so let's take a look at that.
she looks so cool.
Fap.
What are you?
They're so fast. I want more.
I know it really is too fast. I like what I see, even though that was just basically here's ScarJo in the major's haircut.
Yeah, and I mean the first one gives more like I feel like the aesthetic of the movie itself. So
Okay,
it's
let's
not
take a
bad.
look at the first one then. Okay, you know what? That says Ghost in the Shell to me. That
Doesn't it?
Right off the rip.
That one, even though it didn't have the major in it, was my favorite of the 5.
I gotta say,
Some kind of weird kabuki mask thing?
Yeah.
have you seen?
No, I know nothing about Ghost in the Shell.
Yeah.
Is it a series or movies?
Both.
It's both.
Both.
And
Started
there's
as a
like
movie.
reboots and
Is it one of those
revisions
animes that
and-
just has like a crap ton of stuff that I'd never be able to get caught up on?
There's Ghost in the Shell, the movie, and then there's Standalone Complex, the
which
series.
is 24 episodes.
There's 2 seasons.
Yeah, there's 2 seasons, 24 episodes apiece. There's a reboot that's like 4 45-minute episodes.
This is boring.
Yep.
That
There's
is
a really old
really
movie
good.
that's also been rebooted, and then a couple sequel movies.
All right, maybe I'll look into watching.
There's not a ton.
The original movie is good, but I don't think that's what I would recommend off the rip.
No, I wouldn't either.
I mean, I have a special place in my heart for the original movie, and it is very thoughtful. And I mean, when you watch it, you can tell automatically how much influence it had over The Matrix. And if I was gonna recommend a piece to start with, I would actually start with Standalone Complex.
See, I started with the anime. I watched the first 2 seasons, both of those the actual episodes.
Standalone and Second Gig. Yeah.
Here's the thing,
and
though.
then I watched the movies.
I was going to ask Nate for his opinion, but I was not going to ask you, Nika, so...
Rude.
Well, fine.
Yeah, actually, until you said it there, I never really thought of the Matrix, but especially the Animatrix really borrows from Ghost in the Shell. Right?
The Wachowskis have said as much that was a huge point of inspiration for them.
Interesting.
And one of the reasons that it was always so fascinating to me, I mean, basically the title sequence is the exact same between The Matrix and Ghost in the Shell, the original Ghost in the Shell movie. Yeah, it is almost identical when you compare it one up against the other. But I mean, that's by the way not a criticism of the Matrix movie. I actually really liked the first Matrix movie, but
what about the second one?
Yeah,
third one.
We don't need to talk about those.
Animated series.
No, the Animatrix
the MMO.
Was good.
Mr. Bender.
Fuck you, Pinkie Pie.
Oh, the MMO.
If anything, it'd be Fluttershy. Get it right.
Okay.
So after 20 years, Blizzard is officially dropping the Battle.net branding. The service, which was created in 1996 to help players navigate online multiplayer, is being rebranded as Blizzard Tech. With multiplayer functionality being pretty much universally understood, Blizzard claims the separate branding no longer makes sense.
Yeah, so it's still going to be Battle.net. They're just not calling it Battle.net.
I like Battle.net a lot
But
more
they
than
sounds
Blizzard Tech.
cool.
Hang on. So they went from an already kind of bad generic name to an even worse name.
Here's the thing. I don't know that they're actually going to be calling it like specifically, big letters, Blizzard Tech, because they go on to talk about how some of the other stuff that they've came out with is just known as like Blizzard customer service or Blizzard that or Blizzard right. Yeah. And they say they tend to actually there's a lot of confusion and problems when you want to buy like a Blizzard game or you're doing something with Blizzard and you get sent to
Battle.net. Yeah.
I guess that makes sense.
It made sense like back in the day when StarCraft and Diablo were like new to having online multiplayer,
and Battle.net was like the first of its kind.
Right. Nowadays, they're right. It doesn't make a ton of sense anymore.
Okay.
That's the stupidest name I've ever heard.
It is.
Oh, okay.
That wasn't it. But keep
okay.
going.
No, okay. That was just dumb.
You're dumb.
YouTube will be seeing a live video game talk show starting this week on September 29th.
Called Final Encounter.
The show will be hosted.
That's the stupidest name I've ever heard.
You can have half a point for that.
That was good.
The show will be hosted
Nailed
by...
it!
Are you good?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. The show will be hosted by... Good Lord. Well,
I was expecting a drop. I wasn't expecting that drop, though.
Well, this next bit of news brought to you by Crayola Chris.
Callie, would you do your job, please?
God damn.
YouTube will be seeing a live video game talk show starting this week on September 29th. The show will be hosted by Jeff Keighley, because of course it will, and will feature many of the staples of talk shows, including news, interviews, and commentary. The show is produced by Keighley, but collaborated with by other large YouTube channels such as iJustine and Angry Joe Show.
Who's Jeff Keighley?
Video Game Award
Video
guy.
Game Awards.
Oh my God.
Of course it's him.
Yeah.
Jesus, did you even try?
No, they didn't. This is like the go-to gut reaction.
So in a year's time, expect this to be a relic of the past.
Do I get a point for that?
Yeah, so they just picked like some of the popular YouTubes and are like,
That's pretty much it. But I mean,
because like iJustine is cool, I guess, but like she's not bad, but like picking her over some other people to host a game and talk show seems a little...
She's not hosting, she's just a producer.
No, she's helping, right? Or she's part of it?
Her and Angry Joe produce.
Look, I am getting tired of the same gaming media voices.
Yeah.
Because, and...
But he did such a great job.
Such a fantastic job. Not looking at the camera and...
looking at his feet.
Stuttering.
We might need to
acting
sue,
very
by the
tired.
Because Torque was letting us know it's
that's
called...
something Nate Bender doesn't know anything about.
That's right.
Torque was letting us know that it's actually called Final and Keighley Cast, so we may need to look into that.
Oh, shit. Well,
That's unfortunate.
Look, I mean... I'm not terribly enthused about this. First of all, it comes from YouTube. It comes directly from YouTube. So all of the stuff that they've been doing behind the scenes to either flag controversial or objectionable content and unmonetize people's videos and really start to, because really what that is, and we've talked about this a couple of times on the show before, but what this is an attempt by YouTube to shape the course of the content that their users are creating through incentives and disincentives. And that gets really, really dangerously close to limiting the amount of free speech, because anything that YouTube ends up deeming something that they don't really want on their site, they can either disincentivize it to the point where it makes no sense to even have that be a distribution avenue, or they end up alienating all of the good creators, and all of the good content ends up vacating their site.
I mean, are you sure this isn't just kind of their way to like compete with Twitch? Like, hey, we've got a podcast here that's officially us, so come use our gaming service.
Right. The purpose is to help get YouTube gaming up.
Yes, that is absolutely what they're trying to do. My point is, how can you possibly take anything that these people say seriously when they have been so clearly compromised by money, by influence from developers, and from industry forces? How can they possibly be reliable sources of even opinions? Their opinions come into question because you wonder is that opinion bought and sold already?
But here's what it comes down to. You're absolutely right. You're 100% absolutely right, and nobody's going to. For the past how many years now has the industry been trying to manufacture the gaming nerd culture through whether it was G4 or wherever it was now? I mean, we know, being that we're, actually part of this culture, that the only time anything like this works is when it comes from a place that is real, when it comes from a place of passion.
Because the Big Bang Theory, it totally works into that. Because that comes from a place that's real.
I don't hate that.
No. That's not what I meant about what's real. What I mean is, look, we're sitting here making something, okay? Justin TV turned into Twitch TV because that was just gamers gaming, and that's all Twitch really is.
Sure.
It's real gamers gaming. But anytime some big executive or some suit goes, we need to capture this, we need to shape it and make it our own, it never works. And when you're trying to put a face on it, like whatever the fuck that guy's name is, Jeff Keighley, that's what's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Okay?
But the problem is that they keep going back to the same personalities that have been
because they have a track record,
boring and stale for the last 10 years. I couldn't have given a shit about Jeff Keighley when he was a host on G4, and I sure as fuck don't give a crap about him now.
You're right, and that's something, it's this weird blind spot that people in those big executive position of powers has. I mean, how many times has the DC universe been making the same mistakes just because they're trying to
hire Zack Snyder again? He has a track record of failure. We have to absolutely continue that track record. Keep hiring Zack Snyder and give him almost unlimited gobs of money.
Fuck you, Michael Bay.
It's ridiculous.
You have this weird obsession with Michael Bay.
You really do.
I don't like that guy.
And Nate, you mentioned when we were in between shows today about this new Tattle program, effectively, on YouTube.
The Tattler program.
Yes, which
the Tattler program?
The Tattler program.
Yeah, as I understand, it will allow users almost to play a game in reporting other users.
What it is they want to encourage users to police the content.
Right.
So, abilities like being able to mass flag videos and stuff like that, these are now part of a program that you sign up for, and basically what you do is as you flag objectionable content or questionable content, you end up earning points, and those points go to unlocking other what could be seen as moderation tools. For any other website, whether it be YouTube or a forum, most of these tools are just considered basic moderation tools. And as you continue to level up, you can do more and more things like mass flag more and more videos, etc.
It's because they don't want to pay real mods with money, so
that is a huge part of it. Yeah.
But
you geeks are so gullible.
Here's one of the inherent dangers of that is there's no one that actually moderates what videos get flagged. We know that if a company flags a video, whether there's actually anything wrong with it or not, it still counts as being flagged.
That's
right. It still counts against you, which means that people could abuse this system in ways where they take down their competition.
Yep.
They take down people they don't like
or agree with. Yeah.
Whatever it is. Yeah, they could just be like, you know what? I'm going to sign up for this. I'm going to flag you. I got a point, whether that flag was legitimate or not.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Oh my God.
You're just doing this to spite me.
This is it is rife for abuse.
How is it when we've already had all of this other? I mean, we had the movement earlier in the year where all the YouTube content creators were wondering where the fair use is. We're and trying to fight this system, and it's going in the wrong direction.
Right, and just a few weeks ago, you had hashtag YouTube Party is over. You know what I mean? When the discovery that disincentives had been introduced for objectionable or even questionable content that exists on the site, and that people had videos up that hadn't been properly monetized, even while not violating the spirit or even the strict code of the system, that have been flagged anyway. I mean, I think it's a pretty concerning trend. And this is, but the thing is that YouTube, as a private company, has that discretion, because we all signed the terms of service when we signed up for the website. YouTube is not under any kind of obligation to provide their service as a free service. They're a privately owned and held company. They allow us to use their bandwidth because they can place ads on our videos, and they're able to monetize their own site that way. And what they're doing is they're trying to make their site blanketly more appealing for advertisers. That's what controlling the content does. And I think that we saw the underbelly of this issue surface earlier this year when we saw things like these YouTube drama channels skyrocket in popularity overnight. Your drama alerts and things like that. We saw the overnight popularity of that, and then I think that it very much put YouTube on the defensive, because a lot of advertisers were going, well, why are my ads showing up on these shitty videos? I understand that that's a balance that YouTube has to ride, and that at the end of the day, it's their market to lose. You know what I mean? Like, they have the lion's share of the streaming video market, and it's not like they have the exclusive rights on the technology. It's not like they own the only streaming video platform out there anymore. And I do think that you're going to start seeing a migration of talent off of this service and onto other places.
Do you think that's possible, that something could overtake YouTube?
If they keep pursuing the business model that they've been pursuing, yes.
Even with the amount of money they have, you don't think they would just buy out anyone else who tried to pop up?
Yeah, I do. I do.
Well, the important thing to ask here, and it was Oshihidra that says it in the chat, who tattles on the tattlers?
That's no one knows. There's no one checking that system as far as we know. And if there are, they're paid Google employees, which the irony then sets in of, like, why aren't these paid Google employees the ones to be, your
Be the
foot
mods in the
soldiers?
first
Someone needs to get in there and Ozymandias them.
Yeah.
Wow, that's so next gen.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, think about what we got flagged for this week.
Yeah,
it was like that's fine to talk about, right?
We watched on one of our post-show videos. We watched a portion of Rick and Morty.
Yep, we watched an episode of Rick and Morty
and kind of commented on it
completely off camera. You couldn't actually see any of the video, any of the episode playing. You just heard it in the background.
Yeah, you could just hear it, and
it was a private video.
It was an unlisted video.
Unlisted
video,
and we got flagged for it. We had to go to YouTube copyright school, which is unbelievably frustrating.
Don't they have a video from another show in there? Like when they make you watch the video for getting copyright strike, don't they have video from something other show?
It's a Happy Tree Friends video.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
That really gets their point across.
Right.
Anyway.
Is there something wrong with your burger phones, Chris? I see you keep popping into frame on Callie's screen.
It's because it's really loud. I fixed it.
Oh. Okay.
You're really loud in my head.
Crayola, Chris.
Oh, Sorry, Crayola.
We can just call him Crayola for short.
Okay. Should I change his nameplate?
Could ya? You still have to use like the big letter, little letter, big letter, little letter. Yeah.
Okay.
And it should obviously be spelled with a K.
Well, duh.
Duh. Okay. Cool.
Duh.
Yeah. Well, if you put it with a C, we might get flagged. Anyway.
Bullshit.
Circus in Las Vegas will be creating a series of haunted houses and attractions this year, as they do every year as part of their Fright Dome event. While the main theme this year appears to be Krampus, there will be an attraction adapted from Five Nights at Freddy's. The attraction opens September 30th and runs through the month of October.
We absolutely have to do this while we're in Vegas.
I agree.
Dibs on going through with Kooky.
What?
Like, oh my god, a FNAF thing? Absolutely.
Well, usually when they have haunted houses, you have to go through in smaller groups.
Groups of four usually, right?
Yeah. So I'm dibs on going in Kookie's group.
Daddy, will you go through me?
No. Whoa. Just for that, you're getting a capitalized Y in your Crayola. I'm just saying.
Good Lord.
Holy God.
KY.
Oh, gross.
Anyway, as I try to move on from that imagery,
scrub that from your brains, people.
The issues just keep on coming for Street Fighter V. A recent update to the game included some new things, some fun new things. However, it also included something very not fun. The PC version contained a driver that could access kernel-level privileges. Thus, any app that called that driver had unrestricted access to the computer. Capcom claimed it was used to prevent cheating and has since removed it while keeping the positive aspects of the patch. However, this was just not a blow that Street Fighter V needed right now. That is such a massive security breach.
What an oversight.
Have we ever had a positive Street Fighter headline?
No.
I got one for you. Someone modded Harambe into the original Street Fighter.
That is incredible.
That's as good as it's going to get. That's it. Pack it up.
I was hoping that we could do this show forever without a Harambe reference.
And just like all your other dreams, now that one's dead too.
It is crushed. Thanks. I appreciate that.
He died for those
Shameful.
dreams.
Yeah, this is such a major security breach that Capcom just happened to include in this patch. Just breathtaking.
Idiots.
Pretty much. An interesting article at Kotaku UK emerged this week looking into the development of the ever more delayed Star Citizen. The report paints the picture for the second largest crowdfunded game in history as one of the developers being in over their head from the word go. While Cloud Imperium has made great steps in organizing themselves and progressing on the game, many former developers believe the game will never be released as promised and will be a disaster. However, others claim it will be a pinnacle achievement in gaming. The truth, of course, always lies somewhere in the middle. However, for now, the article is a very interesting read. And I mean, it was like 3 or 4 pages long, so I didn't include the whole thing, but it does a great job of going into like where they were at the beginning when they were still a really small team and like all these new things where they were farming them out to different companies and then trying to make them all work together.
Well, I think, first of all, I think what's making people so skeptical about this has been the No Man's Sky launch. And I think people are going back and looking at other crowdfunded games. Well, I mean,
this game has been under fire for long before No Man's Sky was an issue.
That's true, but I'm sure that No Man's Sky didn't help its case
Probably
at
not.
all.
You're so excited about worthless garbage. You want this too?
I mean, what's interesting here though is the notion that the developer was kind of they had a vision for what they wanted, and then they ended up getting more money than they knew what to do with, and it made them add things to the project, and now it feels like to the point it's overpromising.
Well, and that's kind of what they talked about, how like when the game was first coming up, space simulation was such a starved market. Like people wanted a space sim.
Still do.
Everyone threw money. Like anyone who's remotely into space sims threw money at this.
Right.
And then they were just like, oh my God, this is a lot of money.
Right.
We have a lot. Now we have to promise more stuff. And that was kind of, well, that's what they felt they needed to do, I guess.
That? Like, that's ridiculous. If you get more money than you need, just deliver on your original promises, right? Get that out there so that way, whatever it is you want to do next, people know you can deliver on it. They're going to throw even more money at you.
I think that's probably. I mean, like,
instead you end up with No Man's Sky.
I think over ambition is the death of a lot of games because they start with an original concept and they go, okay, yeah, this would make a good game, and then they end up heaping systems upon systems upon systems on top of it because we have the processing power to do it. Why not? We have we're not limited by storage. We're not limited by processing power. Throw more stuff at it. We can just throw, a different point system onto it and just paste it on top of the game.
Met7 in the chat saying No Man's Sky and Star Citizen are very different. Once Star Citizen releases, I'd like you to come back here, remind us of this conversation, and we'll see if that still stands. Because if it falls to the exact same pitfalls as No Man's Sky, doesn't matter if it isn't an entirely, completely different game. If it fails the same way, they might as well be the same thing.
Yeah.
Well, and I mean, it's such a classic blunder in gaming. I remember taking game design courses. Day 2's lesson was scope. Understand the scope of your game.
Right.
And stick to that.
No.
And always have
Oh, you
Whoa.
failed!
Oh my God!
Look at the camera.
Whoa!
Was it a
Look
mouthwash
at
joke?
the camera.
Yes. There's gonna be a mouthwash joke?
You make eye contact and you apologize.
And now, it should be
No.
Full
the camera,
screen.
full screen. Look at
Apologize
the
to them.
camera and admit your fuck up.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
Now, it should be pointed out, of course, Star Citizen in recent times, like this article really is looking at the beginning of their development when things were just a cluster bleep, and they have done a much better job of getting themselves organized since.
Sure.
But there are still lots of looming doubts, and it's just a really cool read. I recommend everyone go check it out.
And I don't think anyone's saying that No Man's Sky and Star Citizen are the same game or they're doomed to the same fate. I don't think anyone is saying that, but I think that a much more critical lens is going to be placed on
Star Citizen because of No Man's Sky.
Correct, because in the macro sense, you're looking at a space sim that is an indie dev project.
That is
huge. Both of those are true of both of those games. So if that is strictly the lens that you're looking at it through, then I think comparing the two are fair, no matter what the finer points or the more granular points of that argument may be.
I just think the overall stance and view on crowdfunding has changed from where it was 5 years ago.
Oh, man.
It has drastically been cast in this darker light now.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Anyone that's out seeking crowdfunding for their project these days has a much steeper hill to climb than they did back in 2009, 2010, 2011.
And people were selling potato salad.
Right. I mean, you heard all of these crazy crowdfunding successes based on either really good ideas or really crazy ideas. But we knew that couldn't last forever, that was not sustainable. And again, we've talked about this on this show before, but this is why we started looking to the radio industry to be able to help us to create more content. And that's what in a sense, that's what we're looking to do with this whole, this brand new radio show is, extend our brand onto a whole new medium, but at the same time, use the medium and the uniqueness of the product being on the medium to be able to drive interest, because it's simply not something that you hear commonly talked about in even in competent means.
And what's great about that is if there is any form of success there, it's going to reflect back onto the other products that we have here as well.
Absolutely, yeah. But relying solely on crowdfunding for the entirety of your product is probably a really bad business plan. If that's your business plan, is to go strictly crowdfunding, I would look at that all over again, because it's got to be a mix. Crowdfunding was very successful for us to be able to launch our content network and to be able to produce greater and greater amounts of content. That's been clear through the way that you guys have supported us through Patreon. And now, when you look at the long-term viability of crowdfunding, it's just not what it was 3 or 4 years ago. And it's forcing not just indie developers to think differently about how they try to seek funding for their product, but I think a lot of media outlets too, and a lot of podcasts, homebrew projects like ours are trying to find new ways to monetize. The good news is, though, that in that time, things like podcasting as a medium have become far more visible because of shows like Serial, because of shows like before that, WTF Pod and things like that. It is now viewed as a medium that does have the potential to generate not just revenue to the producers that are making it, but also to generate interest on the part of advertisers and subsequently drive people to the product that they're they're advertising at the end of the day. So there is much more of an industry that exists around things like this show than existed, 5-6 years ago, but you don't see the same for games and indie games specifically. So I think that this creates a really kind of dangerous, a dangerous market where you've had indie developers who are starting to swell in content, and they and because of that, they're creating more complex and diverse content and succeeding in certain areas, but falling short in others. And it does speak overall to the strength of indie development and the strength of crowdfunding. So two things to keep an eye on.
Especially when you have companies like, wasn't it Sony who pulled that Shenmue 3 stunt on Kickstarter?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And then, these big giant companies that really have nothing to lose, wrecking the whole concept of crowdfunding for what? To gauge interest?
Yeah.
Ugh, yeah.
It really does seem like a pretty craven attempt to be able to use a different means of marketing your product.
Penis.
Good contribution.
CD Projekt Red is running a stress test for their servers ahead of the upcoming beta test for Gwent. Keeping a sense of humor, they've invited fans to come kill their servers on September 27th. They have stated the game is not content complete, and this is not a beta test, merely a stress test. The closed beta begins October 25th.
You gonna be there, Nika?
As best I can. What time did it say they're going to do that at? I don't even know.
7?
I'll figure it out. What bothers me about their advertising, though, is because I'm so into all the Witcher stuff, I constantly get their sponsored ads, and it says, and there's like a video, and there's a big thing that says, come play Gwent today, click here. And I'm like, we can't yet. And it keeps telling you, come play it, join today. Join what everybody else is playing. You can play too. And we're like, no,
you can't.
No, I can't. I signed up for the beta a long time ago.
That's really weird that like they'd advertise it that way.
Yeah, they advertise it with "Come play Gwent now. Click here."
Come play, my lord.
Everyone in the comments is like, "Still waiting." So.
Okay. Well, yeah. I don't know. I've never even played Gwent at all. So
oh my god, it's so much fun.
Was there a beta out at all?
No, it's the actual minigame in the game. It's like basically what Triple Triad is to FF8. Gwent is to Witcher.
Okay.
And it's actually in the game, and they're making a separate spin-off just for Gwent because people would spend more time playing Gwent than playing The Witcher 3, and The Witcher 3 is massive. And so you can imagine how big and how fun and addicting Gwent is.
Okay. Well, for more information on the news and other stories, visit our blog at finalencountercast.com.
That's right. We have a live blog over at our website that is being managed by Kooky Persona. Thank you to Kooky for all her hard work. So there was an article in Rolling Stone. This was back a couple of weeks ago. I'm trying to get the exact date. September 8th, so a few weeks ago, that discussed the future of Final Fantasy. And the title of the article is "Can the Future of Final Fantasy Escape Its Own Past?" And, we had a bit of... we had started to have this discussion on Limit Break Radio, which, by the way, again, if you've never caught Limit Break Radio, it's a show for Final Fantasy XIV. Even if you don't play Final Fantasy XIV, you may want to go check it out. You might end up becoming interested in Final Fantasy XIV because of the show. You can find that over at limitbreakradio.com. But we kind of asked the question, does Square-Enix even have the ability anymore to create a great game that will live up to our expectations? And that's a lot of what this article is about too, is, asking, has Final Fantasy worked itself into a corner so much as a series, and that fans' expectations, like long-term series fans' expectations, are so drastically at odds with what the expectations of a massive gaming audience is, that they can't possibly meet in the middle?
The first thing that I'd like to point out before we get into the meat of this discussion, it's something that we had mentioned on a previous show, is that since Squaresoft and Enix became Square Enix, they have not developed a game that I think has been widely heralded as like a major success. Okay? all of their Final Fantasy titles have had at least some sort of misstep. They had Kingdom Hearts 2, but anything else, when you think of Squaresoft, Square Enix, any of their great games was before the merger. We looked all the way back through. I mean, obviously they've helped publish a bunch of games, Tomb Raiders.
Right.
I don't know if the Dragon Quests are good anymore
Life is
or
Strange.
not. Life is Strange. But as for things they've actually developed, in most of our opinions, there hasn't been one.
Yeah.
So it is very clear that the turning point was the merger.
Which I think is interesting because at the time, I don't think I really even thought of it as notable.
Right.
And I also kind of feel like, Square Enix and Squaresoft before it, Squaresoft at the very end was so focused on pushing the graphic ability of the hardware that it was given and coming out with even better cutscenes and better graphics and better ability to, more polygons, better textures, all of this stuff.
Which is the last thing you think about when you think of all of the great Final Fantasy games.
Yes and no. I think that they've always kind of been at the forefront of pushing graphics technologies because even back
the FMVs were always exciting.
Well, even back on the SNES, they were developing, their own way to display sprites, and there was some kind of thing that they had used for FF6 that made it specifically I can't remember. I wish I could remember the name of the system that they used, but it made it very unique to...
Right. And it was probably one of the reasons... we know that they were very invested in technology the same way that they were games. We had a show where we talked about the Crystal engine or whatever that they developed, I think, for the Final Fantasy movie or whatever it was.
Yeah.
So, obviously they were very, very into that, but there was still such a marked change in... from Squaresoft to Square Enix, and I think Chris pointed it out the best in a conversation where we had, where it seems like now the major focus, or where all the money is being poured into, is the graphics, is the looks. You look back on some of the older games that you played, right? Nowadays RPGs boast 60 to 70 hours playtime.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
I poured so much time into Final Fantasy 7, 8, and 9 that the timer was maxed out at 999 hours.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to get that from Final Fantasy 13.
No.
So
you could get that from some parts of 12, though.
Something's been lost, though, right? When you look at the number of things you can do, tell me that I'm not wrong. That there's more side stuff, there's more activities, and there's more things to do in the older games than the new games.
Yeah,
and
I feel like game development is different.
And they spend more time making the new games, which means that more time is being focused on just better graphics. So am I wrong? Are we losing out on actual playability and actual game mechanics and innovation simply because they want better graphics?
Well, when I think of 9, I don't know if I would say that there was more to do in 9. There was more time-consuming things to do in 9. Things took
I don't
longer.
remember 9 having a slew of side quests outside of a few lore.
9 has like 1,001 side quests.
No, it has a lot, but I don't remember as much. FF10, I have a save account where I have spent 300 hours just on Blitzball alone.
Yeah, my first 9 playthrough where I did most of the side quests that were available in the game, I think maxed out 120 hours.
Yeah, it wasn't something that took 900 hours.
That's still double what most RPGs promise today.
Sure, yeah. Well, one of the big things that I think I notice in the in the intervening period between FF10 and FF12, because I think that's where we can kind of definitively say that was the changing point.
Mm-hmm.
You had FF11 in there, but it was its own thing. It was kind of unique unto itself, and we all are very intimately acquainted with Final Fantasy 11, and so I think that our opinion of it would be, that it was different, but to make Final Fantasy work as an MMO, you would have to change things.
Yeah.
And maybe 11 was a little bit more of a catalyst than we would like to admit. But it's undeniable that when you look at 10 is a completely different style game from 12. And I think the big thing that you lose in that intervening period is not only do you add an Enix onto the production the production staff, but you also lost Hironobu Sakaguchi, who was in a lot of ways the heart and soul of the franchise. He had a variety of different roles in the series from its conception all the way to 10, and then leaving the company after working some amount of development on 11. And so, I think that is something that can't be understated. Now, obviously, he went on to create more games, and if you look at the games that he created, your Blue Dragons, your Lost Odyssey, which is a great game, and I think in a lot of ways, that was a spiritual successor to the Final Fantasy franchise.
Like a Final Fantasy.
It really did. Lost Odyssey felt more like a Final Fantasy game than any Final Fantasy since 10. And I think that is absolutely notable because you've got the same talent working on that you had working on the earlier part of the season. Series.
The memories. Those were fantastic.
There were a lot of portions of that game that I very fondly remember, and only one part that absolutely makes me cringe, and that's the kids. The kids were terrible.
Kids are always terrible.
They are, but I mean, they were, I guess, less terrible than other kids that I've seen in other games,
or real life.
Yeah. And so, I think that, in a lot of ways, there you see a spiritual successor to the Final Fantasy franchise, but at the same time, when you look at its financial success or lack of success, then I think that Square Enix's decision to move away from that style of gameplay suddenly becomes a lot more justifiable from an economic standpoint.
Yeah, well, because what I do is I've been looking at other big mergers that have happened, and I don't notice the same sort of effect as what the Square Enix merger did. I mean, Activision took Blizzard, right? And Blizzard is having one of their best years ever. So it can't have just been the merger. And I think you really hit it on the head there, is the fact that we lost Sakaguchi. It just happened to have coincided with the merger.
Yeah.
Well, Activision and Blizzard merged, but Blizzard remained very much its own entity.
Right.
They didn't become Blizzard.
True. But why, when Square Enix merged with each other, when Square Enix merged, Final Fantasy was doing so great. At what point did anyone think, okay, we need to shake this up now. We need to move some chess pieces around. It had a winning formula. Why mess with it then?
It is a really good question. After FF10, which was arguably one of their most successful, at what point did they go, you know what, this isn't working?
We need to refocus our efforts. We need to try something different.
That?
Well, and it must have been
Sakaguchi. I think part of it was just that they wanted to expand a bit more on the world. I feel like the best thing about 12 is that it had a massively expansive world you could explore. It felt very much like this big political climate, and I think they wanted to make Final Fantasy kind of this big...
That's so weird, because what you're describing, that's how I felt about all the previous ones. I feel like the worlds have been shrinking.
Look, think about this. FF7 is a bunch of little tiny towns sporadically placed about a world. Controlled, the entire world is dominated by one power company. Okay, in real life, this would not play out. In FF12, there are kingdoms, there are different political rulers. There's an actual world that has been built, and the lore in FF12 makes so much more sense than the older.
Okay, they add more lore, but I don't feel like you can go to as many places. I feel like you're restricted. Okay, but that's the thing. I feel like you can have both.
Hang on. This is a really good point, because when you look at the lore of Ivalice is a far larger place than we even got to explore in FF12, because we know from Vagrant Story, we know from Tactics, that there are other parts of the world that were not involved with FF12's story. So I actually think that there is actually something to that. You had an entire planet to explore in FF9, FF8, FF7.
But it's an entire planet of towns sporadically placed. I don't really feel like it's a planet. If it was a planet, we would have countries. We would have.
9 has FF7 6 cities in it.
Yeah, it's not. At least FF9 did have a semblance of a couple different kingdoms, but
so in the abstract,
I just thought about based on which schools are around the world. There's 3, and those are the only places that matter. And in FF7, it's just a bunch of random towns governed by a power company. None of that feels like a real world to me.
Okay, so I will agree to that in the abstract or in concept, yes, the worlds have been getting bigger, but then why does it feel like they're that feels smaller to me then?
FF12, I feel like, is its own type of game, and I don't classify that when I compare these, because FF13 by and far,
I think
was
we're all sort of
extremely linear and small, and we all know that was a very big backstep. And I feel like until 15 comes out, I feel 15 really is going to be the determining factor here. Like, if 15 comes out and it has this massive world, we can explore all of this. It has this great. We already know that there's multiple kingdoms they've already described to us in 15, and I feel like that this could be their chance to prove that they're not failing us. They're not falling backwards and regressing. That they're actually moving forward. So, I mean, as we keep saying, this is their make or break, and they have so much potential to prove that to us.
But something to consider along with that is that now it is more a normative part of gaming to have a big, large, open, explorable world. You think of Skyrim, you think of Fallout, Assassin's Creed. These all have large worlds that you can explore and interact with, much in the same way that FF15 is seeking to be able to create that. But I think that what is notable about what FF9 and before did is that it was able to create a world that big and a setting that large with the existing graphic restriction and existing technological restriction. They were creative enough to be able to figure out, to solve around that problem, to where now when you have an open world Final Fantasy game, it is intrinsically less impressive because it's like, oh, I saw this in countless other games.
You're saying games at the time weren't able to create that large world.
It was a much more impressive feature of Final Fantasy at the time that Final Fantasy 1 through 9 were coming out than it will be now. Now it is almost expected to do an open world game.
Right, which is why I feel a little even more disappointed about 13, because that was the first FF on the PS3, the only one, and it happened that was the pinnacle of that kind of technology, yet they were still so linear with it. It's like, where did they miss that memo?
I remember when 13 hit and someone described it to me as a hallway simulator.
Yeah.
And I sat there thinking like, well, I mean, 10 was already kind of a hallway simulator. Like, no.
Right. Yeah.
No. You don't even know what a hallway simulator is till you play this. And I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
All right.
Someone in the chat pointed out, too, that the way Final Fantasy 7 and 8 and 9 kind of, but I don't think 2 is as great of an effect, worked was, especially 7, like when I was playing that game, I thought it was just about this little group being rebels in the city, and then the next thing you know, that was one town. Look at this massive world.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And so, Nika, I'm going to agree with the stuff that you were saying earlier. I'm not comfortable judging 12 completely because it was so long ago. They're coming out with the re-release. It could be something completely different than what I remember. I'm willing to give that a second go.
All right.
We're all with that. I think a lot of people agree that FF13, though it may be an okay game in and of itself, when compared to the legacy, huge misstep.
Yeah.
There was such a major misstep there.
Yeah.
And that makes, at least me, Nate, I know there's a lot of other people, makes us very cynical about 15. But if 12 was better than we remember, and 13 was the first misstep, maybe 15. Maybe there's some hope to 15.
Well, you just touched on something really interesting to me. Like maybe what it was in all those games, you start off in a very small environment and then you expand into the macro environment. Like you do all the stuff in the first city first before stepping out onto that world map and experiencing more of the world. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it was that feeling of growing into the world.
Yeah, I think that there's definitely something to that because it did. Most Final Fantasies started as a very simple story that kept growing layers upon layers upon layers.
Think about how much each game opens up once you get the airship.
But and this actually kind of doubles my concern for FF15 because of how much pre-media and how much pre-world building we've done before we've even seen the finished or gotten our hands on the finished product.
This could, but to be fair though, I mean, yeah, I understand your concern about that, but I feel like if they do this right and pull it off, this could be the biggest world we've seen, let alone in a Final Fantasy game. I mean, this could be the next Ivalice if it's done properly.
You could be right, but, and this is a pretty big caveat, that what makes that world worth inhabiting for that long? That's the critical question to me.
I didn't think Evil Ace was that special either, but they
I didn't
continue
either.
to put things into it. So
Yeah, no, and that's the thing is they keep setting games in there that I don't understand why.
That, I think, is the difference, right? Because they didn't go, look, here's this world, build. It's Evilus. Come to it now.
Right.
It was
Yeah, I
in
think
one.
it's because
It was
they
in one
did.
Final Fantasy, and the next thing you know, it's like, oh, this is set there too. And then this game is set there. We're like, whoa, this place is huge.
I think
We're
that's their own
discovering
way of
this
world
place.
building it,
Yes. That's what I'm concerned about with FF15. They're throwing so much stuff at us already, and you're right, Nika. Look, it's really great. I love expanded universe stuff, but I think I would rather be there experiencing it firsthand than be like, here's a movie, here's a book, here's a comic, here's an anime.
My argument to that, though, is that they've rebuilt and rebranded the world. Keep in mind, this was supposed to be an extension of FF13's world originally.
Yeah.
And I think that with Type 0 versus 13 and 13, I think would have been that was their try to make a new Evil Ace, and I'm very glad they did not go in that direction.
Well, but that's another big point of concern that we've mentioned a couple of times is that being a reworked concept, it's spent a long time in development, but part of me thinks like, look, if you wanted to throw the concept out, throw the fucking concept out. You know what I mean? Like, and just start fresh.
Well,
how many
They
times?
more or less did. They even changed one of the main characters' names. Like they changed the kingdom.
They changed their name.
I still call it the wrong name.
Mike.
And they changed like the town. Like there's nothing to do with the Falsey, Lassie shit. Like all of that was supposed to be in this game initially. Like they pretty much have changed the entire game.
Well,
they just kept some of the models the same.
It makes for an interesting question of what makes a world feel worth inhabiting. Like why did you always feel good exploring Vana'diel, but Evil Ace feels a little more empty? What makes you want to explore the world?
In it.
I don't know.
Well, but you could say the same thing about Vana'diel and Eorzea, though. At the end of the day, because I sort of feel like that's another that's another similar comparison because for some reason it's not nostalgia. We have I think that we have established that pretty well that Vana'diel, for whatever reason, feels more satisfying to roam around in.
No, it doesn't. All it is it's a big empty area that it requires you to walk across every time you wanted to go anywhere. That's why the world felt big. But in actuality, it was a big open space with reused textures that it just forced you to walk upon. It was satisfying the first time you explored, but so was Eorzea. After that, you teleport to teleport Maya, and you're like, fuck, I have to walk like 3 zones before I can get anywhere, and it pisses you off. Everyone's like, can I make my chocobo faster? Can I just teleport straight there? Why can't we do this? And people would bitch about it. It was not as great as you remember.
Outside of the traveling, Nika, I've always been much more interested in Vana'diel as a setting, as a world, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that Vana'diel doesn't give a shit whether you're a part of it or not, whether you live or die. You are a speck on the back of a flea in Vana'diel, and you have the potential to achieve greatness. In Eorzea, greatness is predestined. It is predetermined. It is written into your DNA, and it is a foregone conclusion that you will become the warrior of light.
Well, the world revolves around you.
Exactly. It is a destiny that you have no choice but to fulfill. Right. And in Final Fantasy XI, you had to rise to the occasion to become the great
11,
hero.
Though, is that you were a great hero at the end of every expansion, and as soon as the next expansion came out, it's like nobody knew who you were, and you didn't actually do any of that stuff.
Yeah,
it was like, I've saved the world. I have stopped this calamity from happening, yet nobody knows who I am or even notices that I did that. And I felt was a little bit of a loss.
Okay,
but that made Rhapsodies feel awesome.
Tell me this, Nika.
Oh, of course.
Tell me this, Nika. There have been all kinds of times, right, throughout history where there has probably been moments where certain cities, countries, whatever, have been on the brink of annihilation or war, and they've probably been stopped, right? How many names can you name that have done that?
Well,
I don't know.
Because maybe in real life they're not like, hey guys, the world was gonna end, but it's okay.
I'm not saying go around and brag about it, but it's
saved us.
But it's like people are aware that these bad things are happening, and then as soon as it's all over,
No, hold on.
Why would they be?
At the end of COPs, they're like, just so you know, no one's gonna know anything that's happened.
Yeah, if the
and
world's
Rise of the
gonna
Zilart.
end,
Nothing happens in Zilart that would actually
if the
threaten
world's
the world.
gonna end, you don't want to go and tell everybody because there's gonna be mass panic. You wrap things up behind the scenes, and nobody knows about it.
It's all of them. That's right, because in Wings of the Goddess, it all happens in the past. No one would know that you fought with Lilith. In Treasures of Ergon, it's all in that restricted area of Nizul Isle.
Yeah.
Only
And
the
that
Empire would.
they wrote that very nicely into the story to keep your character kind of a nobody, I guess. But as a player, I felt a little bit slighted. Like,
Yeah.
I definitely
you know, like,
did. I don't know.
all my stuff for nothing. Like, why did
No, you got
like,
that sweet
bother?
ring.
Oh yeah.
Defending ring.
Yeah, but the thing is do you want to feel? I would rather feel a little bit slighted as a player than lose all motivation to keep logging into the game that I pay $14 a month to be able to log into.
That's a different reason. I don't feel not logging in because my characters play in the story. Like that's not the reason that
I think that for me that's a big part of it. I mean, and that's also a big part of what drives the interest and fascination in the world itself, as opposed to just the world being the setting of the
If you played the Old Republic and you played as a Sith warrior, unlike a lot of the classes that you could start as, in that game you were already a well-established Sith. And rightfully so, people were terrified of you because you could just choke them to death if you got real mad at them. People bow down and kiss your feet from the word go as a Sith warrior. And like at first, I won't lie, for like the first 20 minutes, that was super cool. Because I'm like, yeah, I'm not just like a peon like I am in every other MMO that I play. But then like after a little while, I was just like, all right, dude, I'm doing starter quests for you. I don't think you really need to be like sucking my dick right now.
Like, I don't, in 14, when they stripped you of the goddess's blessing, I thought that was going to have way more of an impact on the way that people would view you. Also, at the beginning of the Heavensward expansion, you're viewed as a social pariah. That never actually had any impact on the way that characters would treat you or view you.
Well, in Ul'dah it did.
I mean, yeah.
For a hot second before it was swept under the rug.
A hot one.
And I brought that up when we were going off of 2.55 when we were doing our predictions.
I think that was Chris.
Oh, of course it was.
Yeah.
But like it was a good way to kind of reset your character back to square one.
Yeah.
Kind of get you pulled down off this great pedestal that the world sees you on.
Yeah.
Because you can
tarnish
only spend
the
so
name
much
of
time,
Warrior of Light. It
you
made
can only
sense.
stand on the pedestal for so long before you're like, all right, we need a new story here.
But they abruptly dropped that for whatever reason and just continue on with you're the greatest.
Before the fall was more like before the stumble.
Right. Yeah. So one of the phrases that really sort of jumped out to me in this Rolling Stone article was no other series inspires such a potent mix of anticipation, nostalgia, and dread, which these are three very different words. And I actually find that this is a phrase that I agreed with a lot.
What were those three words again?
Anticipation, nostalgia,
all right,
and dread.
I've got one that absolutely matches up to it.
Okay.
Limit Break Radio.
It's not wrong, though. I mean, when you think about a new Final Fantasy game, you think about all your great memories, there's your nostalgia, the anticipation of what you want it to be, but the dread because you know what it's been recently.
Yeah, that chances are it can't live up to your expectation. And this sort of gets to the heart of the discussion here, is that has Square-Enix worked itself into a corner so much with its fans that are looking for nostalgia and don't seem to get it anywhere except for the Final Fantasy brand name, right? Like we've seen Bravely Default, we've seen I Am Setsuna. These are two games developed by Square Enix that sought to recapture something of the old Final Fantasy spirit. Now, Bravely Default was very well received, very popular. It was a game that I played to completion and enjoyed the shit out of. But Bravely Default 2 failed to make the same impact. Now, Callie, you had played Bravely Default 2.
Yes.
What were some of the shortcomings of that game versus the first Bravely Default game?
Oh, God. The writing, I think. Like, the writing in 2 just...
terrible.
Like, yeah,
I heard the translating was really bad.
Yeah, it wasn't great. So much of it felt recycled, like, from the first game, which I get that there's always going to be an element of that. But a lot of it felt like I've done this bit before.
Sure.
And sometimes they use that to great effect. They'll like very tongue-in-cheekly like point out like, wait a minute, we've done this, haven't we? So like sometimes it's used effectively. But yeah, no, overall the game, the writing just didn't live up. I will say like the combat system was okay. One issue was that it was too easy.
Okay.
Like I did not wipe on a boss in that game.
I think one of the things that Bravely Default could have done is they could have reset the world every game like Final Fantasy did. and just have that be the game that uses the job combat system and turn-based combat, and have that be its defining feature, because that really was the defining feature of the Final Fantasy series for so long. It was a turn. First of all, it's an RPG that defined it. Second of all, it was huge. You had the entire world available to you that you could explore. And three, it had a very specific turn-based combat system. And I feel like those were the three things that identified a Final Fantasy game all the way up until 10.
Here's one thing that I'll say for Bravely Second, and I don't think in their case, like if I could go back, I wouldn't have them scrap the world and start over, or I would say, because like the story was actually one of the stronger features of the game, despite the writing not being great. Like the words that they say aren't great, but the actual story is pretty good and pretty satisfying.
Okay.
So I wouldn't have them do that necessarily, but you're right. At the end of the day, the turn-based system is a ton of fun, even though it's a bit exploitable in this one. Like the biggest problem with their gameplay is the leveling. It's so easy to break and abuse.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
But outside of that, like, it was fine. The writing just needed more time.
Well, let's take a look at I Am Setsuna, too.
Okay, so now, Robbie, you had played I Am Setsuna. This was a game that was touted as a spiritual successor to Chrono Trigger. Specifically.
What's wrong? You're up there shaking your head.
Specifically,
I always hate when
Chrono
they say
Trigger.
spiritual successor to anything, because Chrono Trigger, Final Fantasy Tactics, Firefly.
Now, to be fair, this used virtually the same combat system from Chrono Trigger. And again, I say spiritual successor not to the Chrono series or Chrono Cross, because though that was when you look at that game disambiguated from Trigger, it was trying to create much more of the environment that Trigger had created than anything that the overall series was striving for.
All right, well, I like the game.
How much of it did you play?
Oh, I don't know how many actual hours I put into it. I'm sure someone could probably look at my Steam account to know, but I didn't finish it.
No?
I like the game. I don't really have any major complaints about it. The characters were all really cool. There were some really great moments, but as someone in the chat said, there was nothing that was really mind-blowing, and I think what it probably comes down to is the same thing that Callie's saying about Bravely Second, is that there was something in the writing that just had a misstep. And as I'm sitting here listening to you two talk about it, I'm thinking back to a conversation we had where we sort of, made the realization that Square-Enix is taking the Final Fantasy games and they're trying to push the genre, push the envelope. They're trying to innovate with their big title, right? Because everyone's going to be looking at that, and they've taken all the elements that sold all their games before that we love, and now they're trying to relegate them to these little side new IPs, and it's not working because they're missing something. And you know what? Those little games, as great as I Am Setsuna could have been, whatever, or the Bravely series, they are not being given as much money as a Final Fantasy game would.
Oh, absolutely.
That's pretty fair, right?
Yeah.
So you have these things that could be succeeding massively that are failing because they don't have enough resources. Then you're pouring all of these resources into something that you want to be innovative, but it's failing because it's not what people want it to be. Does that not just seem fucked to anybody else?
Oh, no. It seems like they're trying to, they're trying to draw the most, they're trying to satisfy the most amount of people as possible. If there's two camps of gamers, your classic Final Fantasy fans and you're none.
And bring new people in.
Yeah, and they're trying to draw from both of those camps. And the thing is I don't think that they're going to be able to do that. I think that if you wanted to make a game like Final Fantasy 15 and not call it Final Fantasy 15, that would probably be fine. All of the other games that they have developed that haven't worked, it's not because they don't have the Final Fantasy title on them. And I think that's what Square Enix thinks is the problem. That, it doesn't have the Final Fantasy brand name on it, that's why The Last Remnant did poorly. Which is not the reason The Last Remnant did poorly. The Last Remnant did poorly because it was a truck fire of a game. It
had potential. I played it I played it almost 20 hours.
I played a bunch of it, and then I couldn't give a shit about the narrative. B, I hated the combat system the whole time.
The combat system was horrible.
It was awful.
Oh my god, you could not control any of it.
And it ran like shit. And there were I had it on the 360, and there were frame rate issues out the ass unless you installed it onto the hard drive.
Yeah, I mean, my actual part is that, like, first of all, it was very slow to get into, and as soon as I started caring about the characters, a character dies, and I was like, whoa, this is crazy. And then, like, an identical character comes in and takes her place 5 minutes later, and you're like it's actually like her daughter. What was the point of that? It's actually like her daughter, and you're like, literally, then after that, she just fills the same role. She has the same moves. She's like essentially the exact same character, and you don't even miss the one that dies.
Oh, that'll stand by.
Didn't they do that in Legend of Dragoon?
They did that in FF5, didn't they?
Sort of in Legend of Dragoon, but Legend of Dragoon pulled it off a bit better than this one. Like, this is just
remember the sting? Remember the sting of losing Ares? Well, you don't have to remember that anymore because here's another character automatically.
Identical character.
Yeah, that happened in FF5.
We call her Ares.
I really liked the character that died, and I was like, man, I can't believe they would kill her off. And then I'm like, oh, we get the exact same character.
Oh, that makes sense. All right, let's go to our phone lines. We have Evil Lives hanging on. What's up, Evil Lives? Thanks for calling Final Encountercast.
Hello.
What's going on?
I just wanted to mention something that Robbie said when he was researching mergers of big companies. I think part of the reason is the way the Japanese work culture works. It's very seniority based to the point where a newer person or a mid-level person, developer or producer, even questioning the path that the higher level person has put the game on can kill your chances in the company.
Sure, but I think one of the things that, at least as a fan, that I thought I had a sense of at the time was that in this Square-Enix merger, that it was the Square people that were coming out on top, and I mean, I think that this makes me rethink that idea a little bit.
See, that's interesting because I always had the opposite impression during that. I heard the impression that a lot of the Square people were going to be subservient to the Enix people.
See, now that's what I've heard in intervening years. And
that's what I believe from day one.
I have no idea what the actual truth of the situation is. Evil Lives, do you have any idea? Like,
it was kind of weird. Like the upper management, it was mostly Square. Because I was in Japan, I've talked to people. It was mostly Square, but in terms of the meat of the developers and everybody, that was kind of the Enix people.
Huh. Interesting.
Well, and with Sakaguchi stepping away, whoever sort of stepped into his shoes, all they really had to do or think about it was, instead of, I need to live up to his legacy, it could have been like, I need to now, trailblaze my own way. I need to do something different, take it in a different direction.
It's never been one person to step into that role. Like we never had a Sakaguchi like part 2. It's been different teams of people that have been working on Final Fantasy games ever since 10.
And maybe that's because, all right, the merger happened, right? So all right, here's your 12 team. Oh, that didn't do as good as the previous ones. All right, you guys are gone. Here's your 13 team. Oh shit. Oh fuck. All right, take the people who are working on the other 13 thing, make them the 15 thing.
I mean, maybe, or the fact that they never had a real major success that happened underneath them in the same way that they had success rebooting FF14, because look at the personality that Yoshi P has been able to kind of turn himself into with the success of that game. I think that success stories do lend themselves to the narrative of game creators, just like any other creative field. But I think it's unfair to say that FF12 wasn't successful. We can objectively say that FF13 did not do very well, but I think that FF12, it sold very well. A lot of people played it. A lot of people have very fond memories of it.
13 must have sold well. They have 3 games of it.
It sold very well.
But and when we're looking at it as
when you're measuring sentiment,
there you go.
Yeah, right.
As a piece of art,
right? Yeah, and also through through the lens of time as well. I think that that's an important perspective to hold as well. But Evil Lives, I do appreciate your point that Japanese corporate culture is far different from ours. We've known that for a long time. Just being involved with consuming video games and seeing the industry changes that happen across the pond. It is definitely an important reminder to keep that in mind. So thanks for the call. If you want to call Final Encountercast, 810-207-1764, Final Encountercast on Skype. So yeah, just Just a response from Evil Lives. Just a resounding. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm actually curious to know, and I was going to ask this, at the beginning of the article, but the actual question that the article asks, the headline,
right?
I'd like to know everybody's thought to that question. So Chris, someone were to ask you, I'm going to ask you, okay?
Yeah.
Can Final Fantasy escape its past?
Yeah, I think it can. I think it's going to be hard, and I think it's going to probably take a game or two. But I think So
you think if they go further down the rabbit hole that they can still make their way out?
Yeah, are they going to be able to innovate out of this problem? Like, what happens? Do they either go back to the old formula of what they knew made for a successful Final Fantasy game? I wish they would try it for one game. I wish they would.
Isn't that what Bravely Default was?
No, I think no.
But it wasn't. No,
it's not.
It wasn't Final Fantasy. It's the same thing for I Am Setsuna. Okay, good game. Good writing. Lots of points where I was like, oh, like I actually felt like, oh man, right? Like really good writing, good plot hooks, but none of it ever got to the same level as when Tidus found out that Yuna has to kill herself to, save the world. And this whole time they've been lying to him. Well, spoilers.
That happens early on in the game. That's the entire point of the game.
Or when Ares dies, or when you found out that all the kids were orphans from the same orphanage.
Spoilers!
Okay, none of it matched up to any of that.
Right.
Why? I don't really know why. The only thing that I can think of is that they didn't put as much money in production into it as they do an actual Final Fantasy game.
But now my question...
And the fact that I Am Setsuna was basically FF10.
But my question is that if Bravely Default had been called Final Fantasy...
It would have had a lot more money put into it as well, though.
Maybe, but do you think that even if it was the exact same game, it was just called Final Fantasy, I don't know.
Final Fantasy World.
Sure, whatever. Would that have made it do better, do you think?
I don't know.
Yes.
But didn't Bravely Default 1 do well as it was?
It did.
Everybody I knew played it. Everybody loved it.
It probably would have sold more. I don't know if it would have changed the perception of the game.
The reason I know so many of my people bought it was actually a spiritual successor. Everyone was like, it's the spiritual successor to FF5. The job system plays the same way. It is fantastic.
Right.
And everyone bought it because of that. Because it was like FF5.
Of the people who didn't buy it, did they not buy it because it was called Bravely Default?
I think there's definitely a percentage of people who looked at it as like, I don't know what that is. I don't care.
I mean, there's always going to be that, but it kind of makes you wonder what could it have proved about the long-term viability of the genre.
I'll tell you this:
had it been called Final
but that
Fantasy.
Makes me wonder, but Square-Enix, we tell Square-Enix to get away from Final Fantasy and make new IPs, and then they try, and it's like, oh, but it doesn't have FF on it, so.
No. That's not fair.
Yes.
Okay. That's not fair because we didn't tell him, make new IPs, clone an FF game and call it something different. FF should remain what FF was. Make new IPs, but actually make new IPs. Brand new world. Don't take the job system and turn-based combat and relabel it and call it a new fucking IP.
Okay.
If Bravely Default had been titled like Final Fantasy or anything, I probably would have just passed on it because I'm well used to those games sucking.
Yeah,
I think right now,
the side games of FF.
in today's market, there's enough of those side FFs that it might not have affected it.
Now, if it had been called Final Fantasy 15, I'd have been like, that's quite a graphical step back, but all right. Guess we'll give it a go.
But, I mean, is that the kind of decision that needs to be made to ensure the long-term viability of the franchise? Because, again, you're managing the expectations of a new audience versus the expectations of your veteran fans. And I kind of wonder, I mean, it's been 10 years since the last Final Fantasy game, like main series game that has dropped. That is a gamer, a fully fledged gamer they're forming their own opinions, that has been born and lived their entire lifespan in that time, that has never played a fresh Final Fantasy. What good does it do to call something Final Fantasy if that generation has no concept or no attachment to the Final Fantasy name?
Especially because they're going to look at it and be like, I haven't played the other 12. Because they don't know. They don't get it.
Well, that's, I think, that is something that Final Fantasy has kind of struggled with for its entire existence.
True. But I think
when I got into Final Fantasy at Final Fantasy VII, I'm like, well, but I haven't played the other 6, and people go, yeah, that doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I didn't
my
even think
OCD,
of that, though.
my OCD kicks in, and I'm like, yeah, but no, that doesn't sound right.
But number.
Yeah, right, exactly. But I mean, I do think that it has a large legacy, a large shadow that it has to live inside of. And in the same way, this was the same thing that people were saying about Metal Gear. Was Metal Gear around the time that they were creating 5 and crafting the story for 5? Was it a slave of its own canon? Could it was a game that couldn't it couldn't live up to its own hype, its own canon that it's created for itself, and it clearly got more convoluted as time went on. And I think you see something similar happening here, but we see it in terms of game mechanics, which I think is even a little bit more upsetting because it's not just a narrative choice, or it's not just, like Metal Gear refined its gameplay always, but its story went fucking off the wall bananas crazy, whereas Final Fantasy games have become more and more conventional if you look at their stories when compared up against anime stories. So their stories have become far more conventional, where their battle systems and all of the ancillary systems around them have become steadily more and more crazy and complicated and off the walls. And I don't know which is better. I don't know which is better and which is worse.
Well, we need to combine the two.
I don't know. I mean, the truth lies somewhere in the middle, probably, as with most things. But I think that it's a real struggle that Square-Enix has got to be able to figure out how they want to try to tackle. And their existing answer of constantly pushing the Final Fantasy brand in a new direction with each successive title, I think that idea needs to go back onto the drawing board, because I
don't know, because when I think about FF1, and when they put it all on the line and that came out and they were not expecting it to be a success and it was, I feel like that's kind of what they're doing with 15. Their mindset is go big or go home. And if they go big and it fails, they go home and they're done. And I think, that's what it is. And I feel like if they are going to get out of their hole, they're getting out of it now. If this game falls, Final Fantasy's done.
I think you're absolutely right, Nick. I think they're kind of going back to saying, you know what, one last hurrah. We're going to try and do something. We're going to try and do something amazing, and it's going to be amazing or it's done.
How fucking sad is it that it's happening on a game that was a subtitle of another fucking game in the series? Like, how sad is that the potential that this could be the last mainline Final Fantasy game in the series?
Well, I'll tell you what.
By the way, you guys got to refresh your cameras. But that it is a reworked title, a reworked spin-off from a different mainline Final Fantasy game. I think that concept is sad. It is sad, but I put it to a point in my head where it's pretty much, I would say, a 95% completely different game. So when I think of it that way, I don't think of it, their last hurrah is a spin-off. I'm they're actually going big with this one, and good for them. But I would have preferred their last hurrah be an actual meaningful effort at creating something with the genre, sort of like the original Final Fantasy was, as opposed to reworking assets and creative ideas that were already on the drawing board, right, to cobble together the remains of a marketable game. That's what FF15 feels like right now to me.
I see that, but my thing is that those aren't concepts that were released to us and that we have already seen before. So in my mind, they're still new because we've never been exposed to them. They might be reusing them internally, but it's not like they gave us a game, we played it, and they're like, okay, now we're going to take it, use the same shit, and rework it. Like, it's still brand new to us. It's something that they've been they've been nurturing as like their child, and I feel like they're now finally perfecting it. And so I'm not too bitter about that because it's still new.
And Overwatch proved that you can pull something great out of something.
You son of a bitch.
I saw him getting over there and getting all ready for it.
I've used this comparison before, but there was another company that spent 10 years making a game, scrapped the whole thing, and started from scratch. And they've said that there are some things from Titan that made it into Overwatch. Like what Tracer, they said, has some major design elements from the original Titan. But the difference is that Square Enix has been like, FF15, like they've been building this grand thing. And if it fails, it's going to fail so hard.
Yeah.
And it's going to crush them. Whereas Blizzard was like, look, we were all up in our shit. We had Titan. We had this great thing. It got too big for us. And we like they were very humble about it, right? They're like, look, anybody can fail, and we knew we had to take a step back and kind of go at this fresh. So now I'm looking at Square Enix, and I'm going to be thinking about how Blizzard turned this around. And if Square Enix doesn't do it perfectly, even if it's like mediocre, I still feel like compared to what they've done now.
Well, and I feel like they already burned that that card. They burned that excuse on FF14. They really did. Like when FF14 1.0 came out and it was a huge flop, they came out and apologized and said, we're going to rework it. It's going to be good. It's going to be good. And then they delivered on it, but that was their one card. That was the one chance that they got.
Why they can't do that again with 15, which is why I think that they're doing the go big or go home with this.
So Nika,
this is their chance.
Do you think that Final Fantasy can escape its past then?
I think with I have high hopes for 15, and I say with 15 it absolutely can. But I do believe very, very hardcore that if 15 fails, Final Fantasy's done.
Callie?
Square Enix done? You don't does this if FF15 fails, does this topple Square Enix?
I don't think it topples them, but I think they are no longer a major player.
Yeah,
I think they go to being a publisher, not a developer.
Yes, I was actually just going to say that. Thank you, you thief.
You did it twice.
Yes, that's twice.
75, please second.
As a publisher, they're very much still viable because you've got the IDOS games, you've got all of the other games that they don't directly develop. But I think, if this doesn't move the needle, that they may pull the plug on being a first party developer. Which, I mean, at that point, who could blame them?
So at that point, does the Final Fantasy name get licensed out to a different publisher?
Oh God.
Which may we say oh God, but I don't know. Maybe that could end up being a good thing.
I can't see that.
Maybe. I don't think
honestly,
so.
I can't see that happening. I could see them just saying, "This is our last hurrah. We're going to go to a different way."
You don't think that would be well marketed, like the Final Fantasy?
No, and you know why they're not going to throw that away?
It's not going to be the final one, because if they start marketing it as it's the final one, so everyone goes out and buys it and they make a shit ton of money, they're not going to end it there.
Even if it flops so hardcore, the Final Fantasy name still carries weight. I mean, hell, they're making another Fantastic Four movie.
They're making another Metal Gear Solid game.
Well, first of all, 5 did well, though.
Yeah, it did.
Okay. Nate, can Final Fantasy escape its past?
Yes, but it really is going to take some serious effort on Square Enix's part. And I don't know, I don't have the answer is the thing. I've got a lot of ideas, but no one thing that would be able to cure all the problems that the company has built in for itself in the last 10 years.
Disagree with all of you.
I said no.
I disagree with all of you. It can escape the past.
Can future of Final Fantasy escape past?
Yes. By dying.
Okay.
It's the only way that it escapes is dying.
Is by just
going away. It's not going to happen, but it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Even if it fails and they stop publishing games, someone else is going to take that mantle. They are. They're going to give it out to somebody else. Maybe that ends up being great, maybe it doesn't. If some other publisher saves the Final Fantasy name after a colossal flop, that's going to be a time to live in.
Or do you think it could be something like Final Fantasy it flops, it's done, like maybe 10, 20 years down the road, someone else at Square Enix picks it back up?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Absolutely.
Because in that case, everyone in the mind will be like, whoa, there's not even the same people working for Square Enix anymore, but it's still Final Fantasy. Let's see what they do with it. I mean,
I could see something like that working, maybe, if they just kind of gave it a rest for a while. That may be the best. That may be the best thing.
10-year rest isn't long enough.
But I mean, they were actively developing and still trying to feed us information. And I feel like if they literally just say no more FF games, and then later in the future they're like, well, okay, it's been a while. We've got new, fresh talent talent at the company. Let's try this again.
They'd have to cancel it and reboot it, basically.
Yeah.
And I mean, not like reboot it, call a new, the new game just Final Fantasy, but just, just give people a bit of a breather.
Final Fantasy 1-2.
Yeah. Well, and also give them that letdown and that disappointment of saying there is no more Final Fantasy games. This is it.
We're
done.
Though.
And then once people realize they miss it, they're going to want it again.
Are they? Because you're talking in 10, 15 years, you have a whole new generation. That's not going to be a Final Fantasy like what we remembered. It would just be going through the whole thing again. If they reinvented it, they would be reinventing it for a brand new audience. It would look nothing like what it used to look like. It would be Final Fantasy in absolutely name only.
Not if it worked for Doctor Who.
Not if they hire J.J. Abrams. If J.J. Abrams comes in, they'll do the exact same thing that made it great, but they'll just change like two things.
A wall.
Yeah.
And they'll add more explosions.
Right.
And a wall.
Hey, this isn't Michael Bay. They get Benedict Cumberbatch.
By the way, if you haven't watched the latest season of South Park, I absolutely have to recommend it.
It's so good.
It is so good. Member berries.
We always like to make jokes about series that need to just up and die already.
Oh,
this
God.
one can keep going. I'm fine with it.
Yeah,
South Park's great again.
Yes, South Park is.
South Park had reached a point where I thought that. But.
They did. There was a couple of years where
like
they
season
had
13.
They had some bad seasons, but they've really been able to turn it around. Last season
was great.
Every episode of last season was hilarious. I was crying, laughing at the most recent episode of South Park that I've seen. So it is it's a fantastic show, but also does sort of tie into the J.J. Abrams joke that I just told, but also nostalgia culture in a big way. I feel like that's if last year's season was commenting on politically correct culture, I feel like there's going to be an arc in this season that comments on nostalgia culture, which I'm kind of excited to see where that goes. So, a big recommendation for South Park coming from me. But I do think that this is a conversation that is painful for Square Enix fans, and especially long-term Square Enix fans, to have. This is one of the few companies that I've ever felt genuinely invested in and emotionally invested in. I don't tend to do the whole brand identification thing. I've never been one to, be a huge subscriber to trends or shit like that. Like, that's just not stuff that really enters my consciousness. But and in a lot of ways, I do end up, some brands that I like, I end up rebelling against at some point because I used to like them. That has never been the case with Square Enix. Square Enix has kept me as a loyal fan, if not a dogged critic of theirs, for almost 20 years now. And it's sad to see what the company has devolved into. And I certainly hope that this doesn't end up speaking to the quality of games that they can still produce. I know that is a large part of what we were asking here today, but it needs to be said that all of us in our
heart of hearts,
in the deepest core of our beings, are huge Final Fantasy and Square Enix fans, and we want them to succeed. I don't know that I've expressed this on the show, but I hope I'm wrong about Final Fantasy 15. For as much as I've trashed on the game, for as much as I've bagged on everything that I've seen out of the game, I hope I'm wrong. I hope it turns out to be a great game. I hope it pleasantly surprises me when I get to play it. But I don't think I'm gonna be. I mean, I haven't been.
I don't know.
Recently. Just
Square
saying.
Enix has not yet become what Konami has become. I feel like
You're
Konami
right.
is the one that is completely.
No, you're right.
Like, even before the whole shit with Kojima, like, Konami as a company was slowly going downhill, and Square Enix has not had that happen to them yet. So that's why I still think that they've got a ways to go before they become the shit company that we're envisioning. But
I have a confession to make. Shut the fuck up, Chris. All right, because
Mr. Nate.
I'm right there with you
Colin
on that, Nate. but I have one tiny confession. There is a small part of me that does want to see it fail and burn, just so that we can bash on Nika while she has a crushed heart and spirit.
Oh, what the hell? That's mean. Oh my gosh.
Just a small part.
I considered you a friend.
Just a small part. It's just a small part. It's just a small part, Nika.
It's a part of him that he hates.
Well,
I know what it is.
Kali's like, I've seen into his character a few times, and I don't think that's true.
I know that part well.
No, I really do. I genuinely hope that I'm wrong. I genuinely hope that this game is far better than all of my expectations for it are. I hope that when I play it, I have a good time. And I hope that my cynicism and my negativity, which is just a part of my character, doesn't end up impeding my enjoyment of the game. And I will say this, that I haven't let it yet. I don't think that I've let my cynicism for a game series impact my overall enjoyment of what I end up getting.
So you're going to try Metal Gear Solid Survive?
Oh my God.
He is putting that statement to the test.
No. No, I'm not. I'm not.
Why do you lie all the time?
But honestly, I mean, like, this is... I have not jumped ship from Square Enix. And I don't think that I'm ready to start now, but FF15 is going to be
the deciding factor,
a make or break for me. I mean, it's not like if FF15 sucks, I'm gonna go out and destroy all my Square Enix games and delete.
I'll still play Tomb Raider.
You know,
but that's not a Square Enix developed game.
I know.
You know, it's not like if FF15 sucks that I'm gonna cancel my FF14 subscription. We're gonna wrap up LBR and all of that. That's not what's at stake. I mean, what's really at stake is whether Square Enix has the financial viability to continue to develop products like these. And I you know, if they got away from trying to develop their own graphics engine, maybe that would drive the cost down a little bit, and maybe that would help. But there's got to be something that they can do, because spending 10 years on a development project for it to only... I mean, I have to question what their sales projections are, or what they need, what the quota is that they need to be able to consider the game a success. Right. Because we've seen that the expectation from the publishers and from the developers has been so high in the past that even well-performing games in the current market don't end up becoming, in their eyes, technically a success.
They don't hit the black.
Right. Exactly. So, I mean, I think that, you know, Square Enix is going to have to do a better job at managing these things, managing these expectations, and also managing the costs of a lot of their development endeavors, because too many of them have gone belly up. And maybe that's the case. Maybe they couldn't afford to let another, let another project die like that. Maybe that's the case.
Don't put more money into something just because you've put so much into it already.
But that's what Blizzard learned, and they redirected and came up with something entirely different. I don't see, the thing is that we don't know enough about what Versus 13 was initially intended to be able to make that comparison fair.
Yeah.
So, you know, for as much as Titan and Versus 13 have some similar development history there, I don't know that the comparison is totally fair. So I just, there's a lot at stake for Square Enix. Again, I hope I'm wrong. I really sincerely hope that I'm wrong, and I hope that this game does well, but I don't see it from anything that I've seen, that I've played, that I've interacted with. It just doesn't seem like it has a whole lot of promise.
I think you're wrong.
To keep me there. I'm saying as right. For me personally, that once I buy, because it's a foregone conclusion, I'm going to buy it. Yeah. I'm absolutely going to buy it. Is it going to hold my attention enough to keep me playing? I don't know. So, thank you guys.
Do we have time for one email?
You know what? Fine.
We have one.
We have one.
It's topical.
Yep.
Oh, it sure is.
Nate Bender says,
"Oh God,
if this game comes out and there's still a day one download, what was the fucking point of the delay? If anyone can explain that to me, I don't know. I'll blow you.
Time to put your mouth where our balls are.
Well done.
Was that 201?
No.
Oh, okay.
I already hit that one.
What was it?
Just keep reading.
All right, this is really straightforward. Yes, there will be a day one patch. But you fix the most important shit first. So for the people who do not have an internet connection console, which is a significant amount in Japan apparently, they will get all the high priority fixes and optimizations that they need put on the discs thanks to the delay. That answer probably won't satisfy Nate, but it's sure going to satisfy me. On your knees, Bender.
It's not.
Torque rather dashing.
I mean, that's a good point.
It's
if there's
not.
anything game breaking in there and you don't have access to the internet, how do you play the game?
I mean, that I guess is
they fix all the major things, and the quality of life or the graphical fixes come later, or come in our day one downloads. Whereas
not going to be the only thing coming.
No, that just actually adds to my point, which originally was this game is fucked.
Yeah.
Because if they had printed discs with a game-breaking bug or error that you would have needed a patch that large to fix, then the game is fucked. I'm sorry, if you're shipping it, if it was even intended to be shipped with that level of quality control that had not been thoroughly gone through of all of the elements of the game, like, no, how is that still makes it unjustifiable. It still makes it completely fucked, and it just adds to my point that there is still going to be a day one patch. The question is, how large do you want that day one patch to be? And this to me says, if it's that bad that they had to reprint discs, that the game is in more trouble than we think from a mechanical level.
You want to know what I want to know now? If they did reprint the discs, where are the original ones?
They got
Sitting in a
thrown.
landfill
I don't think
in
they were
Utah.
already printed.
They're hanging out with those ET cartridges.
Yeah.
I have a hard time believing that the discs are all already printed and ready to ship.
Nika.
Then what's the 2-month delay for?
Because they knew that they were going to have an issue, and they're like, no, we're going to have to fix it instead.
But all right, if they knew that, why they have a big fucking?
They didn't know that back in March. They knew that a month ago.
There's no arguing with her.
She can't argue with a fanboy.
She is the Chris.
What?
Like how he is to Nintendo, that's her to Square Enix.
You're not wrong, but the thing is,
They both have exactly the same
ever try to
response.
defend Nintendo?
I have been watching and listening and reading like everything that there has been about this game, and there has been nothing yet to dissuade me. So until that happens, I am totally on the hype train.
Well, right, but and
this is why watching her soul and heart crumble when it fails is going to be so amazing.
But Nika, my opinion that it's not going to do well or it's not going to be a terribly good game is based on what I have interacted with, which has been the 2 demos that they put out for the PS4.
They were beautiful.
Yes, they were beautiful, but
That's the whole point of the second demo, was literally just to say, look how pretty our stuff is.
But they didn't feel satisfying. Nothing about the games actually felt satisfying. They just felt like a repetition of Kingdom Hearts. Like there was
that's a great no.
Kingdom Hearts is very hack and slash.
That's a great point, because when I played the demo for Mass Effect 3, that fucking blew me away.
Okay, and that's fair. I mean, there have been other games like, the first Metal Gear Solid demo. That was one. I got that on a demo disc that came with a PlayStation magazine, and I knew I was buying that game.
You spent how many hours playing Ground Zero, and how short was that?
The storyline for Ground Zero was like a couple hours, but there was all these side things that opened up after
But you
different
put
difficulties
like
and
50
stuff.
hours into that game, and it wasn't even like a full game, right?
Yeah.
That's insane.
And it really was sort of like a tech demo, a glorified tech demo that you had to pay for. And the thing is that, the demo, a demo can actually really unveil a lot about the game. And the fact that it did feel so unsatisfying to me personally, and I understand that that's an opinion and that, that's, all of the things that go along with that. But to me, it was just unsatisfying. It felt very repetitive. It felt very much derivative from Kingdom Hearts, and it didn't feel like a Final Fantasy. And those are my primary criticisms coming into Final Fantasy 15. Again, I'm going to play it. I'm going to buy it. But the question is it going to be able to hook me and keep me there in the same way that Final Fantasy games of old used to do, and that I've recently found that Dark Souls has been able to do, that Pokemon has been able to do. So it's not like I've lost the capacity within me as a player or as a human being to be motivated or to continue playing these games. It is, I think, intrinsic in the game to go, if it loses you, it's not my fault, that's the fault of the game. And if you're going to be honest about it and not be a fanboy about it, I think that is a pretty objective measurement once you get the actual product of whether or not it did succeed or fail.
Which is why it's so hard to answer that question right now.
Yes. Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. And all of this it's all very subjective. It's all very anecdotal. And it's all, we're really just trying to read tea leaves and